Hi guys, it's Friday, aka last day of term. Yesterday I handed my coursework in. I have now officially completed 25% of the marked part of my degree, which is just kind of scary, but also such a massive relief. Like, I cannot even tell you. In the evening we had the JCR Christmas dinner, and after that I went and did a gig with Ukulele Society, so it was a really nice end of the term. Along the vein of what everyone else has been talking about this week, I thought I would do something about interviews. Everyone's kind of already said these things already, but I just want to reiterate. Of course you're going to be nervous, but it genuinely is not meant to be a scary experience. The tutors are not trying to terrify you. They're not trying to catch you out either. They're genuinely trying to just see how you think. They are obviously trying to push you and challenge you if you come here. I think it was Daniel who was saying in his video that like, coming to Oxford is quite weird for a lot of people because you're used to sort of easily being kind of top of the class for your subject, and you never really get that sense of, actually, I don't know what to say to this, I don't know what the answer is, or I don't actually know what I think about this, which is something that you will encounter at Oxford all the time, and it's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean you're doing badly, it just means that you're being pushed more than you normally would be. If you've been offered an interview, it's because they think they've been very impressed by your application so far and they genuinely think that you might fit in here, but the point of the interview is to actually see whether they think this is the best place for you to learn in. If you don't get a place, it's not necessarily because you're not good enough, it's just because they think you'd be better suited somewhere else. I actually almost didn't apply to Oxford at all. The idea of the interview process kind of freaked me out so much because obviously there's like the ELAT and then there's the interviews, and I kind of already thought I'm not good enough to go to Oxford and do English anyway, and the idea of going through that stressful process just to be told that I'd been rejected was almost enough to put me off. Obviously I'm really glad that I did apply. The way I reconciled myself to it in the end was to think, well, so maybe I will go to the interview and I will get rejected. But that doesn't mean it's been a wasted experience. I should just go and just try and enjoy it and just see it as like I've got this opportunity to go and live in Oxford for a couple of days and see what it's like. I was fully expecting to be rejected, but in a way that kind of made me more confident, I think, because I just sort of thought, well, I'm just going to go in and do my best. I genuinely really loved being here. I had 2 interviews at Mansfield, which is standard for all English applicants. I had my interviews on like Monday and Tuesday or something, and then I was expecting to go home, but I got called to interview at St Hilda's College. Sometimes other colleges will be interested in considering you as well, and you'll get called to go somewhere else. During the few days that I was here, I was actually sharing a room with another girl who was applying, and so like that could have been kind of scary, but I really liked it because it kind of calmed my nerves a bit to be with someone who was in the same situation. Runners who are, you know, current students who help to run interviews and stuff, put on lots of social activities and everything, so it was really nice because you almost got to see what it would be like to actually be a student here. A bit more about English interviews specifically. You will have at least 2 interviews in like the sort of main college that you've either applied to or been called to interview at. I think that's the standard anyway. I had 2 different interviews with 2 different tutors in each interview, so it was me plus 2 tutors. The first interview I got given an unseen poem, and I got to go and sit outside for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then basically they just called me back in. They were really friendly and lovely about it, and just asked me to talk to them about, you know, what I thought of the poem. That will always happen in one of your interviews. You'll get given an unseen text and you'll get given time to read it over and gather your thoughts about it and annotate it maybe. Different people get given different length texts, different kinds of texts, different amounts of time to read them, so there's really no specific thing that I can tell you on that point. That is, I guess, the one thing that you maybe can prepare for a bit more. My English teacher, when I was in 6th form, used to get me to like read poems that I hadn't seen before, and then she'd just give me a few minutes to read it, and then she'd just ask me to talk to her about what I thought the poem was about, or what I thought about it, what I thought was interesting about it. If you just like get like a poetry anthology or something, and like every now and then like give yourself a few minutes to read a poem, and then give yourself a few minutes to write down like what you think it's about, like stylistic features, you know, like structure, rhyme schemes and rhythms, like themes, any interesting language points, connections that you can think of to other things that you've read. And my other interview was a lot more general. They asked me, I think, quite a bit about some stuff I put on my personal statement, like things I'd studied in school, and also asked me a bit about stuff from my submitted work. Make sure that you're very like familiar with the work you submitted and the books that you put in your personal statement. Remember what happens in them, because I do remember a couple of like hairy moments where they would ask me, I just remember in particular being asked about something about the ending of Great Expectations, and I suddenly just thought, I can't remember what happens at the end of Great Expectations, I can't remember how it ends. Little things like that are things that you probably can like prepare for. My Hilda's interview was slightly scary in that there were 4 of them and 1 of me, because I think they basically tried to cram the 2 interviews into one, because they also gave me a text to read through whilst I was there. They kind of read it through for me and then asked me to tell them what it was about, and it was this quite obscure description of the Mona Lisa by Walter Pater, and I managed to get that it was someone describing like a painting of a woman, but I really couldn't work out what it was. I'm not sure that they expected me to, but I found that interview a lot more difficult and intimidating than the ones I had at Mansfield, which just goes to show that just because you feel like you're not answering things well or whatever, I'm not looking for people who've got like perfect rehearsed speeches. I might come out thinking, oh my god, like I just said whatever came into my head and I just kept talking and I'm not really sure if what I said was making sense. That is exactly how I felt. They are trying to push you until you reach a point where you just genuinely can't be pushed any further. So, and I guess the other thing that I would say is it's okay to change your mind, even if you start by saying, this is my kind of opinion on this particular text or this thing you've asked me. It's not like a sign of weakness or something to go, oh, actually, now that you point that out and I consider that in conjunction with this, I actually think that I probably think this about it now. Equally, if they say something that you don't agree with and you have reasons for not agreeing with it, that's fine to disagree as well. I would say in general though, in interview, they are just looking to see that you're really passionate about literature and that you enjoy reading, not just because you're told to at school, but that you enjoy reading in general, reading outside of like what you have to do for your syllabus. But it doesn't matter if you haven't read, you know, like all the great canonical writers. I definitely hadn't. I read mostly contemporary literature. I talked about Twilight in one of my interviews because I think the question was something like, have you ever read something that you didn't like? And I just went off on a big rant about how awful I thought Twilight was, and I don't know what they thought of that, but you know, I talked about that and I still got an offer, so clearly they're looking for you to be engaged with literature, but it doesn't have to be, you know, there's no like checklist of things you need to have read or technical terms you need to know or anything like that at all.